Looks like a serious bunch here. How's everybody doing?
Good, how are you?
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Fuck the meeting. Well. So become more clear. I probably us from consultants. Typically, there's a lot of review ahead of time. And the commission. So I guess I'm.
It's set up for purchasing to be a process where you guys evaluate them and talk through things, not putting it out to the public. I think these are maybe actually protected until they're reviewed, but this is our standard purchasing process. It's posted for people to submit bids that are not reviewed individually. They're open for committee. As all of you wanted to participate in that, and you all make up the audit committee, figure that needed to then trigger a public meeting, and you guys needed to do that process in this meeting. Typically, we wouldn't have the body reviewing all of them. So this is a normal thing, but I don't know if I've ever seen all of the bids opened. Other places do that. I've seen where they'll have like a contract that's blank on the agenda, and then the commissioners might review the submissions in that meeting, and part of their motion is after they've talked through what's in there, they make that determination. So I know this feels weird, but the weird part is just that it's being done in a public meeting. That makes sense.
Yeah, I was on, when I was on the Southeastern, but I can't remember all the acronyms of that, but we were looking at contracts to build a building of their price, and we did open them in a public meeting and review them in a public meeting, but it was bids on building. So that's the only time.
I guess my first concern was is that we just haven't had a chance to review them. So we're basically in a meeting here where we're trying to read through these and then trying to compare them to each other. And that doesn't work for my, I need time to process this stuff. So let alone all of the questions that I have for the applicants, which I have a list of them.
Well, and so in the purchasing policy, and in what we published, it says that a follow-up may be interviews or questions from the selection committee. So I know this does feel very odd, but if we send them out ahead of time, then it's going against purchasing policy and actually state purchasing. So it is a weird process, but it's a funky thing since all of you want to be part of the process, but you trigger a public body. So I know it's uncomfortable, but there are areas of consideration to talk through, and printed out the relevant parts of the RFP so that you guys know what to be thinking through. And then if you want to schedule interviews or you have questions, you would direct us to go back to the respondents and ask those. This is the initial person.
And how many applicants did we receive, Tony?
Three.
So maybe then at this meeting we can have you thread.
That's part of purchasing, right? We put it out for selection to review. So it would be violating our policy and process if we reviewed them and maybe any input. This is probably policy, the RFP that I think everybody reviews.
Yeah, I think it's sort of a favorite bill. It's nice, and these are longer documents, we actually have time to.
I think that just so that we preserve the integrity of the meeting, that we can sit here and discuss that there's three of them. We definitely need time to review them, but I don't think we should make a decision.
No, and you don't have to, but this is the weird part is, it's, you all wanted to do it and we have to follow the purchasing policy. So this is what is outlined for how to review that. You don't have to make a decision today, but you do need to, as the committee, go through and you don't have to talk about them. I gave you all little tools that just for each one, think through the areas of consideration. And then let us know what you would like for next steps. And if it's more time to review and you do it individually, you can do that. But for the initial process, we have to have the selection committee meet together to look at what was submitted. So
I guess another point that I thought we were gonna make a selection, we're just gonna make a recommendation. Commission.
yes,
So we still be a selection committee. Yeah, it just seems like kind of a
it's
combination of various policies.
but to be honest, I think the hard part that makes it feel funky is that it's an entire body that wants to review it, and I don't think any of you would have wanted to be left off for us to say just one commissioner or two beyond this so that it can be done as we normally do the proposal reviews. So
Yeah, I think it's a suggestion I made. Like, yeah, if this were a commission decision, what would be involved in this? Like the subcommittee. of commission, which is plus- Instead of being the audit committee, we could be some subcommittee. of commission. That would be, I think, more in line with that.
And I agree with that, and I think that what we should do is move this meeting to something under that guise or whatever, and that we have them set up for interviews at that time, so that we're not one meeting and we're done with a recommendation to the full commission.
I guess my personal thoughts, and I don't know, but it would be if you guys all meet to review something that you'd be voting to make a recommendation for, but you don't call it a meeting of the audit committee is a violation of the event. I think that's like the commission meeting and saying, we want to meet and say that we're this group and make a recommendation when we meet again. If all three of you are there and you're reviewing something that you're going to be making a recommendation to the entire commission on, I think you are that body.
Yeah, it's good to me because I think the three of us will meet this afternoon. Without meeting, we're not.
But you are making a recommendation. You are reviewing something that you guys will be voting on.
So maybe,
I think then we need to do another meeting.
Right.
We need to have them on Zoom so that
Yes.
the public is aware, we're aware, we've had time to review.
Yes, but for this initial step, we just need you guys to talk through. And it is in there that interviews can be scheduled, follow-up questions, but we couldn't publish or have you all individually review them and go against the policy and what was published, saying the selection committee will evaluate these together in this meeting, in a public meeting of the audit. So,
But how can we possibly review these when we haven't read them? I mean, we can read them as we go here, but I can't tell you A from Z to put this pile of paperwork at this meeting.
well, yeah,
We've had no chance to familiarize ourselves with anything. I mean, other than we have a name for us on here, but me, I would prefer to do some research, dig them up online, find out who they are, where they're located. I mean, this one, I think it looks like Salt Lake City, but still, I don't know if they're working out of their backyard as a.
no, and that's unfortunately how purchasing goes a lot of the time, is we have to wait and see what we get, and then have to look at all of them together, and there isn't the time to research. That's when you go look at them as the committee and talk through things. And that's why it's built in there of that you can do follow-up questions or interviews. So I think it's just the nature of it. We have selection committees all the time that when they meet, it is looking at those for the first time. And that's how it's intended to be read.
But it's, I mean, even the selection committee that we did for Better Destinations, we had those people there when we were going through the resumes, didn't we, Quinn? I mean, individually, we went through, I don't know how many companies with Chris Baird and myself, and I remember Quinn, I don't know who else, but there was August maybe.
Good follow-up interviews. with-
I'm trying to remember, Bill, and I'm not 100%, but I think that was
I'm
a
not
follow.
even-
I believe those were follow-up. I think we had a selection committee that looked at the ones and picked the top few. And then you're right, we did do that, but I think that was a subsequent meeting, and that's totally just not my memory.
But it sounds like we're all agreed that we're not gonna try to make recommendations.
Okay,
I think
Yes.
we all would like to have time to look at these
sure.
and not try to look at them.
Right.
At this meeting, and just decide on next steps there.
So then we want to just do a quick review of this and.
Again, I mean, it sounds like staff hasn't looked at things either, so I'm not sure there's much to say. But
No,
we got two other items on the agenda.
Yeah, this
is right.
This is
And
the
maybe schedule another
Agreed.
meeting.
policy and process at play. It's just in a public meeting so that all be part.
Yeah, this meeting is serving as the seal bid opening, so we haven't looked at these either.
Yeah,
Right.
so really is, in my mind, we've kind of dealt with this. Let's deal with the other items on the agenda. Move to,
But I think if there are any you wanna scan through, maybe there's some that it's like, we don't want to consider any of these, but we would need basic direction from you if it's these all just scanning it and the areas for consideration. We would like to do an interview of all of them.
Can't we read through the proposals first?
Can, but this is not the purchasing policy or the process that was laid out, so. And I believe all three of you read the RFP and gave the go ahead and in there and did the process. This is the process.
Okay, let's finish the other agenda items. This meeting, Gabe's here, so.
So do we want to set before, do we want to just go ahead and set it another meeting now, or?
I think it's easier to see. So one of our agenda items is update on the May 2020
What do
audit.
we want to? All right, oh, okay.
So I spoke with John Hatterley. He's the lead CPA in the Larson team that works with our audit. Unfortunately, he's giving a class right now at a conference in Florida because I was hoping that he would be able to call in. He was willing to, but apparently, unfortunately, that conflict arose. so sort of this committee could hear sort of from him directly about the status of everything. But it was indicated to me by Stephen, his sort of right-hand man as it relates to the audit team that works with Grant County, that he has a goal of, focusing the rest of this week on a draft financial statement that could be presented, he indicated, by the end of this week. And I'm not sure the nature of that draft, if it's a first draft. I don't have any details as to what that is, but I think that that's kind of what we've been after as far as having something to review, and having clear details regarding, what aspects of it might be preliminary or not. Certainly the pending component units continues to be a holdup in terms of the finalization of that draft. And I'm working to identify the list of, I have a list of the component units, and some need a formal audit and others need a statement that's sort of submitted to the state that the auditors can access through the portal that provides some attestation to their financial health. And there, I am concerned that there are some small districts that aren't equipped or are unaware of that sort of requirement. So I'm not sure to what degree that is all completed and available as is needed. But the recreation district, the solid waste district, the transportation district, assuming that they have the revenues that qualify for a full audit, which those three in the past have, those are all still pending. Their component unit audit which would be needed to sort of finalize the draft that Larson would present.
Repeat those districts again, I'm sorry.
Recreation, solid waste, and transportation. So that's really all I have to update at this time.
Those are things that we're waiting on regarding the state audit, or I guess I was lost. I thought we were doing an update on the audit that we received from the state, but you're talking about stuff that John's auditing, correct?
Well, I mean, I am talking about specifically about what John's auditing, though I am also still curious, and I suppose it's, I think quite obviously whatever preliminary financial statements that might be presented by the end of this week wouldn't include adjustments that could be related to an official findings letter presented by the state auditor's office. So that's certainly, I would imagine that would have to be considered a sort of a gap in whatever draft gets presented.
I understand.
Mm-hmm. That's it for the update. I do have a first draft on an RFP for the external audit that didn't end up on the agenda, but perhaps that's a discussion item in terms of how you all want to proceed, and there are a couple sort of decision points that I've identified in particular, but ultimately, I guess I went ahead and prepared that draft based on based on templates from other counties as well as the state auditor's office. But ultimately, I think it would be up to this body to refine and decide, what that RFP actually looked like, because it is y'all's decision to select the external auditor. Thank you. Okay. Yeah, perhaps you're just, I don't know. Yeah, I guess this body wouldn't issue a recommendation to the full commission necessarily. It would just be more reviewing the work of that, whatever external auditor is selected. So yeah,
Well,
you're probably right.
No, I think we might issue recommendations, but I okay, anything else? Last item is minutes. Motion.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we'll figure out next steps.
We could go back to something Valerie said. Do we want to discuss these three? Because I have looked through the pile now and seen the three different companies that have applied for this position we've advertised for. And I know there's been some pretty heated debate back and forth about the fact that I don't feel Cody Deeper is qualified because of conflict of interest. So we could narrow this down in my mind to two companies. Future meeting at this point, if we follow Valerie's advice, that's not
And should we
acceptable.
I haven't had any time to do something.
Well, this hasn't got anything to do with the packet. This is the fact that we've had multiple discussions for the last year over the fact that Cody Dieter has a conflict of interest, and so.
I guess, I mean, I'm not sure I agree that the position come because they're on the other hand, my understanding is that that same company is applying for yet another camping contract. And it passes the threshold. So I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I just kind of think about it and also know whether we're gonna know about this other work and to what extent. The new contracts represent
Yeah,
additional reason.
that's fair. So I did pull it up, one thing. Any responses to bids, proposals, yada yada, if they're responding to an RFP or question. Quote, those are protected documents until you guys are able to make some kind of a determination. That is how it goes. So I'm trying to think about how you can proceed without discussing them right now. So I think it would be appropriate to take a few minutes and read through. Like Bill said that he did, I think taking that time and a few minutes, scan through and having some discussion today. And if it is ruling one out, great, but that doesn't mean that. That's not fun. So I would very much ask that you do that so that it's following.
That's the only issue that I see that would need to be discussed at this point if we are going to eliminate somebody, and if there is no desire on the other members to consider that, then really, I guess what we would need to do is vote, are we going to interview three companies or are we going to interview two? And I think that there are so many potentials of conflict here for Cody Dieter that to even consider him, considering the vast amount of public scrutiny that we have right now, would just add to another layer of lack of transparency by this board, by the commission in general. And there's no reason to even do that when we can find somebody. We obviously have two other companies here to interview, so to add to what we're already in the middle of makes no sense.
Elaborate on conflict. I mean, I view conflict of interest as kind of narrow lane as to what that pertains to. Can you elaborate on that? And then that'd be great. And then if we could have 15 minutes to sit, I haven't been able to look through anything.
Well, conflict of interest is we would be hiring a financial advisor to advise us to his own work.
Gotcha.
And it just can't, doesn't get any simpler than that. And there's no, that's not what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody who's above and outside of our organization to help us not go through what we are currently going through with the state audit. And so
Thank you.
there's my conflict.
Okay, great.
I just know in past conversations, it's Seth saying that we didn't see any conflict between the two. But you're gonna be Cody's company out of himself might possibly do some additional.
Yeah, they have submitted a bid for another project,
What is that?
the impact fee analysis, and partnerships. That's in the final stages of review at this point, but final decision has not been made, but I think that's.
And I have. Maybe not. Not saying we definitely should not. Go back to
So. Then. What's the decision? I mean,
do we have to decide? I mean, I guess I'm still balking at the idea that we're supposed to absorb these kinds of material at this meeting and make decisions.
I agree totally.
Yeah,
I just think we have justification.
it might be that one of these is way better than the other two, just.
I was going to interview the other two companies.
So then I guess there is the question. Yeah, do you want to direct staff to schedule interviews with all three? Or two of them? And I know this feels uncomfortable, and I'm sorry, I'm a little frustrated because I'm just trying to make sure policy is followed here, and I know it's bizarre, but
Yes, we are. I don't think there's any intent to. I'm glad you're trying to follow policy. Like frankly, that's all that I'm trying to do. And as I'm sure that both of these folks are also.
I still think these schedules insiders.
Need to decide now if we're gonna interview two or three, correct? And then they will set the next meeting up.
Because it wasn't clear to me that
What's that?
it wasn't clear to me we had to make a decision.
They're gonna set up the next meeting and interviews. We need to make that decision.
Yeah, that would be great if you just gave us, 24 hours.
It's like a
Do it
decision.
tomorrow.
Decision.
But doesn't need to be made publicly. That's all. If it doesn't, then let's move on. I don't care if you take 24 hours or 15 minutes. I mean, I'm pretty clear already that. A huge conflict here, so need more time to come to that conclusion.
something you guys could decide is, yes, we definitely want to interview these two. And then we might have the opportunity to maybe ask Steven questions or, more to come, have those conversations to determine. But I think just to give us some guidance like that.
A general statement on. Yeah, I'm good with that.
Is that a-
So what people, I mean, I haven't done the applications yet, so I don't even either.
Other than the names.
So
that are
independent of that, definitely.
correct.
Sure.
Okay, so let's,
Just ask.
we just have to figure out the schedule.
Yes, and then we will, then the public is aware also that there might be a third interview, there might not.
Okay. So you're gonna ask Steven specifically about the possible conflict and just to make
Make a
a
decision.
decision on that.
I think I have.
Okay.
Meeting adjourned. We'll be back together.
And I'm reading through, I don't